And Prince. And action.
Well, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So I have to ask, how are you doing? And how's COVID for you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I can't complain. COVID has been challenging for all of us, but for me, I've really just taken it as an opportunity to go inward, reflect, and really utilize it as a time to find new solutions.
Now, you are the head of the Black Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
What has changed? What have you guys noticed regarding the racial uprising? What is happening out here, and what have you guys had to really be dealing with?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the key things that we've noticed since the racial uprising that took place last year is some companies really recognizing what are some solutions that we can implement within their organizations. We've seen a huge spike in terms of increase in terms of hiring diversity and inclusion specialists, and also companies really trying to find frameworks to support their diverse employees as well, to ensure that they're creating a safe environment for them to feel supported and also heard. But more importantly, I think with the Chamber of Commerce, the fact that we, at the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, we service entrepreneurs, and I think especially during this time and with the pandemic happening simultaneously, we're seeing huge challenges for entrepreneurs having access to capital, making sure that their companies can still thrive during these challenging times, as they're a huge part of our, economic ecosystem. And what about you? Tell me more in terms of what has been your experience, and what are the things that you've been seeing as challenges during these times?
Representing both corporate sector and the creative sector,
Yeah.
It's been both extreme. So there's been obviously a lot of challenges that have just gone through the roof since the Black Uprising, but there's also been amazing outreach on behalf of some others.
Right.
From the corporate perspective, obviously everything shut down. I do believe a lot of leaders were trying to figure out what is the messaging?
Right.
How do we message appropriately? Allies were contemplating themselves, what do I do? What do I say to Black individuals, people of color, to let them know I'm thinking about them, I care about you, I care about what's happening. So there was really a little bit of that.
Yep.
Right after, the uprising, one of the things that was happening to us was a lot of leaders were asking and reaching out to me to say, how do we craft the right message? What
Right.
should it look like?
Right.
Okay. How should we craft it internally?
Okay.
But as I said to many leaders, you have to craft a message that has some sincerity to it. It has to be honest, but you have to craft it in a manner that recognizes that statement will leave the boundary. So it will leave your offices, it will leave your organization, and it will get out there into the ether.
Right.
I will say this. A few amazing things happened. Right after, everything was falling apart, I had calls from a few individuals, few clients, and they called just to simply say, hey, Michael, we're watching what's going on. How can we help?
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing.
Yeah.
At times there's a few of those incidents where it was actually emotional.
Right.
From the creative aspect of things, I just think what it did was rip the Band-Aid off even more. Okay, so you have a number of Black creatives in this industry from all walks of life who have tried themselves for years, getting into the game, getting into leadership positions, decision-making positions, writing positions, directing positions, and it's been an uphill battle.
Right.
Okay. Now, has this changed anything? I think what I noticed that there were a lot more Zoom calls. There were a lot more calls for internship, and I call it internship stuff.
Yep.
But there weren't a lot of calls really in terms of actionables to say, what, maybe what we ought to do is hire a new vice president of creative, or maybe what we ought to do is hire a new CEO,
Right.
or maybe what we ought to do is hire a head writer. There wasn't a lot of that. There was really a lot of dialoguing.
Yes.
How do we do it? What should we do? What should it look like? And where do we find great creative Black people? And
Right.
I said, they're everywhere. They're all around you.
Exactly.
You just want to look. So there's a lot of talk.
Yep.
I do believe there's been some great intentional things that have occurred. Some leaders and some brands have made some great investments. But I think for all the move for the positive, I do think that there's a segment that is still stuck and it has not moved. I don't believe Black creatives have gotten any more opportunities, to be honest with you. And that is sad because they are brilliant creative individuals that have been knocking on the door forever.
Right.
And I do not believe that there's been a major shift. I think the shift has been incremental.
Has been incremental.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. And it's funny because one of the things you touched on in terms of some of these solutions and strategies that these companies have been trying to implement, one of the things I observed is that because a lot of the times the solution that we've kind of seen happen is let's just hire a diversity and inclusion.
Don't get me started.
Let's just hire a diversity and inclusion specialist or expert. And that's a great first step. But I think companies really need to analyze their whole entire culture internally. You know, just having that one employee is not the full-blown solution, especially if we know that in the corporate world, what really matters is their bottom line. But it's recognizing that added value in the solution in terms of having diverse thoughts at the table really can increase profit margins as well. And one of, I've been having conversations with some of my friends who are diversity and inclusion experts, and one of the challenges that we hear is that even if they are proposing certain solutions, they also need buy-in at the C-suite level of people to then approve those recommendations and provide the adequate budget to also implement some of these solutions. And so what has been, your views on some of these initiatives that we've kind of seen when it comes to that? Because I don't think that just having a diversity and inclusion specialist or expert is the sole solution. You really need other voices at that C-suite executive table to really be a part of the decision-making process.
So I'll say this. I tend to rail against that machinery.
Yes.
Okay.
With reason.
Okay, of the diversity person.
Yes.
So let me put it in maybe 2 or 3 ways. They are C-suite individuals that obviously are clients of mine, and I've had a lot of these conversations, who truly are willing to invest.
Yep.
Okay? So I've said to individuals, the mere fact that they've hired you is something.
Right.
They don't have to.
Right.
Okay? But they've hired someone.
Yes.
One of the issues that I think we're facing and we're seeing a lot is that there's been this explosion of diversity and inclusion in people.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you look at their backgrounds and ask yourself, what were you doing last year? It wasn't that. The year before that, it really wasn't that. Okay? So you do have individuals coming into the industry that may not have the qualifications or the depth of expertise. You are Black, I get that, and that's good. Okay? So what they're unable to do is to prepare the right type of strategy for an organization. Okay? So look, I get it. People write a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, a lot of Maya Angelou quotes, a lot of Oprah quotes. It's fantastic.
Right.
But the problem is when you get hired for a mandate at that level and someone says to you from a board perspective or a C-suite, prepare a strategy for us to go forward and then implement.
Right.
Okay? Now, try to imagine what happens when they give you the 30 days or the 15 days, whatever. You've never done it before. You have no idea what it really is. And then you present something that the C-suite cannot invest in.
Right.
Okay? What ends up happening then, the C-suite then says, well, it's obviously not that important to us. We've obviously hired wrong.
Right.
This diversity thing is poppycock. Okay?
Right.
That is part of what I rail against. Now, the individuals that are truly vested in this, they have the expertise, the experience. What I've noticed is the majority of them were never hired. Okay? They were not getting the opportunities. And they're the people that can solve the issue.
Right.
Because they weren't sexy, right? They didn't have great Instagram things, and they didn't write a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. They're just brilliant because they've done it.
Right.
And I found that was a real difficulty for me, and a difficulty for us as a people, because what we ended up lacking was the leadership in those areas.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. They are some amazing people, and I'd love to see more of them.
Absolutely.
running these opportunities, managing these opportunities, being a part of these organizations.
For sure.
It is difficult. I get that. It's difficult to come up with strategic plans that work.
Right.
And yes, if you don't have buy-in from the C-suite, it is a waste of time.
It is.
Okay?
It is.
But there is a percentage of organizations that have truly vested. They just want to see results.
Right.
Okay? They want to see some type of a strategy that will allow them to say, okay, I get it.
Right.
Okay? And the other part of the thing that we have to think about is, look, we live in the skin of ours, right? We wake up with it every day.
Right.
There are individuals who are running organizations or in the C-suite that honestly do not get it. Now, some are tone deaf, some
Yeah.
are willfully deaf, some just don't care, and others actually want to help, they just don't know what to do.
Right. They don't know
do
the
not
how.
want to step in the wrong place.
Right.
Okay? So then they
Step away.
step away,
Right.
And I think part of the diversity actionable items must not just be strategies, but can you lead people into a safe area, educate them,
Right.
and then demand certain things for that education, demand actionable items, but at the end of it, deliver something in return.
Right.
Right.
It
And I
really-
think that's where it's a little bit of a fuzzy area at the moment.
Right, right. And so I think to your point, in terms of that quality control piece, making sure that those diversity and inclusion experts are also supported in a way, I think from an HR perspective, that quality control has to also be processed there to make sure that they are hiring those who have the real expertise to develop a strategy and also implement it in a way that's impactful and in a way that can really bring about change within these organizations. Because I think there's so many different factors that are necessary to really make that change happen, and you really need that additional buy-in from top leadership, because I do believe change happens from the top down, and so that's how I think it's a way for us to mitigate that quality process.
So, as head of the Black Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
one of the things that you are doing obviously is fighting on behalf of Black entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs across the country.
Yes.
So I have to ask you, what is the health of the Black entrepreneur today?
Wow, the health of the Black entrepreneur today. I would say it's very challenging, if I'm being honest, especially because we've seen the impact of the pandemic for all business owners and all entrepreneurs, but specifically for Black entrepreneurs, it's been that much more challenging. And one of the perfect ways to reflect that is a study that was conducted by the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce in partnership with the BDC. It was a report and a study that we conducted last year, where we were really examining what are the key challenges that Black entrepreneurs are facing across Canada. And there were, a plethora of challenges that they are facing, but some of the key ones highlighted were access to capital. And access to capital means a multitude of things. That means having access at the banks to actually qualify for the loan and be accepted. And through the study, we realized that some of these entrepreneurs, some of these Black entrepreneurs, have to get representatives of a different race to be the face of their companies to then get approved for loans at the bank, which is insanity, which is unacceptable, actually. It's unacceptable that this is still happening right now. And not only that, it's the amounts as well that they're being approved for. And so we're seeing that there's a challenge from the financial institutions. Not only are they sometimes being biased in terms of how much loans are being, provided to our community, do they understand our business models and the business industries, the business plans that we're presenting? Sometimes, we're entering fields that we know is trillion-dollar industries, whether it's, specific tech, innovative related industries, whether it's beauty, but things that really deal with our community. We need bankers who understand what we're bringing to the table for us to get an equitable treatment and opportunity when it comes to funding. And so that is a huge, huge issue. And also in terms of government, making sure that there's funding and grants accessible. Loans are great, right? I mean, we were able to kind of see that through the federal government, releasing all these loans accessible. And while loans are great and a lot of entrepreneurs are appreciative of that, they also need grants where it's not money that they have to reimburse. I mean, it's already a pandemic. They've already incurred tons of debt during these challenging times. And so how do we make sure that, there's also grants to really help them survive and maintain their business, but more importantly, allow them to continue to thrive and grow their businesses during these times. And so that specific challenge, we've seen that being a key item as a challenge, and also access to mentorship. That was another piece that we found is mentorship. How can we best support Black entrepreneurs who oftentimes are, first-time entrepreneurs or first-generation entrepreneurs within their families, and where they're, recreating some new opportunities within their families. And so mentorship is a critical piece for anyone's success. And so we also need to make sure that our Black entrepreneurs across Canada are getting that support to make the best decisions for their companies, knowing how to scale them, and really having that guidance to make the best executive decisions to really grow their companies as well.
Well, that's amazing. Is there a vast difference in Black entrepreneurs between Black women, okay, and versus Black men? Like, where are the Black women entrepreneurs? Like, where are they in this soup, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's interesting. Black women we've seen a huge spike probably over the past 5 years in terms of Black women entrepreneurship. They are at the helm. We are seeing them building businesses across the country, not just in Canada, even just through North America. We're just seeing that huge spike of women empowerment and entrepreneurship in terms of women. So it's really been beautiful to see that and be a part of that, being an entrepreneur myself. And there's really that sense of community as well amongst the women entrepreneurs, which has really been beautiful to see. And I think that as the years go by, we'll continue to see a consistent increase in terms of women entrepreneurs looking for ways to have that opportunity and build their own companies, but also all of us as a community collaborating, women and men, and building these infrastructures to not only support ourselves, but for the next generation as well. And I think, especially post last year with the racial uprising, I think there was a huge pivot of, if you were working for a company that was not willing to take a stand, or if you were working for a company that you felt that was not responsive to what was happening, a lot of people walked away and just really were willing to take a chance on themselves and build a business that was sustainable and not have to deal with microaggressions or that type of stress that you're facing at work, because mental health is real, and when you're an entrepreneur, you need that support, and I think that it's going to be beautiful to really see over the years how we continue to collaborate as a community. But that being said, I know you're a part of the Black Opportunity Fund.
Tiny part.
A tiny part. Okay, fair enough. What has been your experience, and what have you been seeing through the great work that you guys have been doing at the Black Opportunity Fund?
Well, I'll be the first to say that, we have a collection of pretty amazing people trying to do something. We're not the only ones.
Yes,
okay?
yes,
There
for sure.
are a multitude of other organizations out there that,
Absolutely.
are trying to do their part, little and large. So I applaud everybody who's trying to do something positive.
Yep.
When it comes to, we've seen some of the same situations as yours.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs across the country, men and women. We've had a lot of conversations with government, the truth be known. And, you said what you spoke about with the bank. I'll give you 2 little tiny stories.
Yes.
Okay, that maybe you can relate to. 3, actually. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but someone actually called me after a 2-hour conversation, very, very good conversation. This is a person who is an ally. This is a person that wants to help the community.
Right.
And we spent a couple of hours with various businesses talking about the challenge and the access to capital and the ridiculous aspect of the bank.
Right.
And, he called me afterwards and he said to me, he says, Michael, I'm not trying to be naive, but is this really happening? And I said, yeah.
Right.
And he goes, but it sounds insane. I said, well, it is insane. And he said, well, it must be happening. Is it happening since COVID? I go, no, it's been happening since I was a kid.
Thank you.
Okay? So here are 2 stories. There's a gentleman named Courtney who owns Caribbean Queen Jerk.
Okay.
5 locations, okay? Even in COVID, highly profitable.
Wow.
West Indian food.
Amazing.
Okay? Just as COVID turned, he said to himself, you know what I want to do? I'm going to build a all-eat, what do you call it? Buffet for West Indian food, okay? Picked a place, got the place, went to the bank and said, look, I've got this thing, great idea. I already have 5 locations,
Right.
okay? This is the guy that feeds kids at school, okay? So he's a lunch program.
Okay.
The lunch program is as follows. If you see a black child, any child really, but if you see a black child that comes to school and you get that sense that he doesn't have lunch money, he doesn't have lunch, don't embarrass him, don't do anything like that. Just send him over,
Right.
okay? We'll take care of it, okay?
Wow.
No, it's incredible.
amazing.
Okay? And this is an ongoing thing he does with every location,
Wow.
okay? So think of it for a moment. He goes to the bank and he says, hey, I need some money to start this thing, okay? I've got 5 locations. I bank with you. I've got 2 homes. One's paid for. The bank says, that's fantastic. That's good stuff. I don't know how we can give you any money. We just don't see it. We don't see how that would work. Okay. No, you think that's crazy, right?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's not crazy. The crazy part is he then takes out $350,000 in cash out of that same bank, out of his own account. Okay?
Boom.
Right? So the money's there.
Right.
Okay? But for some strange reason,
Strange reason.
right? You just can't give him a loan.
Right.
Right?
Right.
All right. So there's another gentleman that owns Gem's Meats.
Okay.
So Gem is I think he's got 3 locations. He's got a fish market and he's got a grocery store.
Okay.
Okay? Does extraordinarily well, gives back to the community, same thing.
Right.
Okay? Same story. Now, is it accidental? It is not.
It is not.
Okay? And it requires, it requires a major shift, okay, which is not happening.
Right.
There's a gentleman in Montreal who has, I don't want to misquote him, but he has a gym which is about 15,000 square feet.
Okay.
He has a health center as well. And what he did was he said, you know what, there's this Caribbean, restaurant, been in Montreal forever.
Okay.
People are getting on in their age, so let me buy it.
Right.
Okay, and refurbish it, get it sorted.
Okay.
Okay, he goes to the bank and he says, look, I'm going to refurbish it, I'm buying it. It's goodwill buying, so the previous people who are sending it or selling it are with me.
Right.
And the bank says, I can't help you. Okay? And he says, well, I've got this business. He says, yeah, no, we can't help you. But even before that, what he said was, because his name is not a black name. Right? So he called and spoken to them and they agreed to see him. When he walked in, and he has dreads down to his ass, when he walked in, the meeting was cut short. I said, we just don't know how to help you. Now, this is like blatant. This is without the filter.
Right.
This is raw. This is without the chaser.
Right.
There's no orange juice in this. This is just straight. Okay? And this is a microcosm of what is happening right across the country.
Exactly.
People with good businesses, profitable business, generating capital, are unable to get access to that capital.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what is the solution? I don't know.
Right.
Right? I mean, do we change the banking system? I don't know.
I don't know.
Do we then say to them that what I've said is we need better intake officers. So we need people that understand our community, they understand our businesses, and it is not based on color. Will that happen? I don't know.
Right.
This is partly what spurred us to start the Black Opportunity Fund. Okay, is to say, okay, we know that's going to be a long-term solve.
Right.
Maybe a whole group of us can get together, build something that is sustainable over the lifetime of our community, where businesses can come somewhere else to get the proper funding we want.
Right.
Okay, so we weren't necessarily shy about it. We asked for $1 billion for the government.
Yeah.
Okay, now, we don't know where that is, but I will say the conversations from the government have been very positive.
Right.
It's going to be a long-term dialoguing.
Absolutely.
And again, as I will say, it's not just us. There's a number of other organizations
Absolutely.
walking with us, rowing with us to get to that place.
Absolutely.
But we cannot rely just on banks anymore to
Right.
do this. And the last point I'll make on that is, a former executive of the bank told me, he said, I shouldn't be telling you this, but you do know that all the banks share the same information about the black community.
Right.
By the way, that's illegal, okay? But he said there's a code that they assign to black businesses, and that code is shared amongst all banks. Now, I don't know that, I've never seen it,
Right.
okay? But it cannot be a mystery
Right.
that all the banks across the board react the same way.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we are not, you tell me, it would be different if there was a bank that continued to support the community.
Right.
We could say, you know what, that bank is whatever. But all the banks
Right.
are having trouble providing financial resources to profitable entrepreneurial business,
Right.
an existing business. It cannot be a mystery.
Exactly,
Okay?
exactly. It's clearly systemic bias, and I think one of the other solutions, perhaps outside of waiting on the banks to develop, having more intakers who understand our businesses, but we should also explore creating our own banks, having a Black-owned bank in Canada. There's a few that exist in the U.S., and I think that having that could also be another way for us to provide those resources to our own community and for us to help support ourselves while they take however long it'll take to implement that change. At least there are different organizations putting on that pressure. For example, with the report that we released, we also received, different calls from financial institutions and, government entities looking to help. But I think that, as you mentioned, it is going to take time. And I also think we should explore, having our own banks that to service our community, because we've seen what redlining has done, in the US when it comes to that. Even in Canada, we've seen that there has been bias, not just to the Black community, but to the Indigenous community in terms of locking them out through postal codes. Like, these are facts, right? That financial institutions have been biased in that way. And I just think it's important for us to explore those solutions, but also figure out our own as well to service our community. So in terms of some of the potential solutions, I mean, you and I have touched on different things today and during this conversation, but what are some of the trends that you're seeing when it comes to the talent experience and onboarding process?
There are a number of things that have to change in terms of talent.
Right.
Okay. One, organizations must change the individuals that they are hiring to do searches, headhunting, consulting, and all other areas.
Right.
You will not be able to achieve success or to find talent that you normally were not looking for.
That's it.
You need individuals who have the experience, the relationships, to be able, on your behalf of an organization, bring forth talent that before you might have ignored.
Right.
Okay? There's also that old idiom when people are looking at talent that happens to have a skin color or a different name, that they're not taking the experience on par.
Right.
That has to change.
Agreed.
In realizing that individuals who are coming in at a certain level with previous experience, you must have individuals capable of interviewing them.
That's it.
And learning what that experience is. We're in a global, things have changed.
Exactly.
I said a quote to a client and I said, the days of North American brands coming off planes with only 4 or 5 Caucasian people into Asian companies, Asian countries, African countries, Caribbean countries, and go, hey, we're coming to tell you how to do it. Those days are behind us.
It's over.
Okay?
Yep.
So you cannot say to companies, we've done all the research, we know what you're doing, but we have nobody that looks like you. We have no person that is a female as a leader.
Right.
That is insane. And those things have to stop.
Agreed.
There are companies who are making, I think, great inroads in trying to shift that.
For sure.
Okay? And so the ones who are doing that, we really do have to give them a bit of applause.
Agreed.
Okay? And maybe what that will do is spurn others and embarrass others to recognize that, okay, this is a problem.
Absolutely.
And I would say the third thing I would say, companies also have to recognize that if you do not have diverse talent within your organization, you are losing.
Right.
You just don't know how much you're losing.
That's
so
it.
you're losing that viewpoint. Mm-hmm. You're losing that diversity of thought and diversity of relationships.
Exactly.
Because you have individuals in your company that have relationships in the Caribbean, in Africa, in the United States. But if you're not giving them opportunities or bringing them into your fold, you're losing.
Absolutely. What are some solutions that you have identified or kind of think would really help combat all of this?
So solutions are the simplest.
Right.
hire the right people, to search for the right people so you can get the right people.
Right.
Okay, number one. Number two, and this is where I sort of rail against the machinery. So there are organizations out there who profess to be individuals that can deliver talent. They cannot. Okay? Yes, you can do large conferences and all of that stuff. That doesn't mean you understand talent.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't mean that you are able to really and honestly get underneath the epidermis to understand each person and what they bring and why they fit.
For sure. For
okay?
sure.
And again, just like the diversity issue that we spoke of, there is a plethora of companies and individuals who are now getting out there and say, hey, why don't you come to us? We will give you talent. We know talent. Okay?
Right.
And so far, it's proven to be a bloody disaster. Okay? Because all they're doing is getting a ton of people to put resumes in somewhere.
Right.
And then push those resumes to brands. So when it doesn't work because the fit process has not been analyzed properly, it falls away. And what does a corporate company say? I told you. I knew they weren't, all of that. I knew they weren't very good. So that is a dangerous thing that we're seeing at the moment.
Right.
Okay, is our brands and individuals going out there, but again, do not have the previous experience or the expertise. Okay, but they have great branding. Okay, or because they have invited other people to speak. And so those people who have come to speak to go, oh my God, I spoke with this organization, let me ask them for talent.
Right.
Okay? Look, this has not changed in 100 years. Find expertise.
Right.
Find individuals that are able to do what they do and do it very well. The end result meaning you will get great things from that.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So there is immense talent.
That's it.
Okay? Women, men, non-binary individuals, if they are given the opportunity, they can shine.
That's it.
Okay?
For sure.
There's no shortage of talent. That is a myth.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say is there's always been this push to let's do, internships. Internships are great at the beginning, but if you're not providing an avenue and a roadmap for success, then it's a burnout. So people come in, a year later they're gone because there is nothing available.
Right.
There are no stepping stones available. There's
Right.
not a culture that has been developed to say, you come in as an intern, here's the roadmap,
That's
going
it.
forward.
That's
okay?
it.
There are not enough organizations providing internal services of brilliance.
Right.
Okay, so they're not providing coaching experience. They're not providing support for the ecosystem. So you have these people who are there from all over the place. Create an atmosphere that people feel at home. They feel I belong here.
Right.
I am listened to.
Right.
Right. And I think organizations will be stunned by the greatness that comes out of it. And one other thing, not lastly, but one of the major things. Just hire amazing people, okay? Hire amazing people at the decision-making level,
Right.
at the head of creative, at the CEO level, at the manager's level, not just concentrating on internships and junior individuals that come in and you do not create an environment for them.
That's it.
Right? Hire those individuals so that as you make a decision on behalf of your organization, it is a well-rounded decision. It is a multi-layer decision. It is a multicultural decision because that is the world that we're in. I think if there are organizations who take it upon themselves to do this, I think a year from now, 2 years from now, you will see the fruits of that labor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This has been an amazing experience for me. I've just loved hanging out with you. It's been so enjoyable.
Likewise.
All right. I have to say that, first of all, your organization, the Black Chamber of Commerce, is in very good hands.
Thank you.
It really is. I mean, look at us, really. We're in a safe space.
Yes.
Right? Sharing ideas. Okay? In effect, making ripples.
Right.
Right? Literally throwing a little pebble in the pond just to see what happens in the ripple effect.
Right.
Right? So I think this has been just extraordinary. But if you had a final thought, what would that thought be?
I mean, my final thoughts would be that this is a great time to implement change and for all of us to just take accountability and find ways to make our own ripples, into this ecosystem and really impact our community in that great way. What about you? I've just had a great time speaking with you today. What are your final thoughts?
I would say that with everything that's going on, that we've endured and what the Black community has endured, I think it's just a reminder.
Yes.
Right? To remind our youth, or black men or black women or people of color, you are more amazing, okay, than you sometimes realize.
That's it.
Right? We are stronger than you realize. And even though we are in our homes and doing whatever, sometimes we need a reminder, right, of just how amazing, how strong, and how unbelievable we are.
That's
okay?
it.
We're gonna get there.
That's
right?
it.
And to me, it's just letting everybody know we see you. Even though you might be sequestered at home, okay, we see you. And together, I think our future is bright.
I love it.
Right.
I love it.